Imagine on your 75th birthday throwing a celebration and everyone looks around and says, hey, you don't look a day past 20. Well, that doesn't happen in the real world, but it does happen in the automotive. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now behind me is the youthful side of a, vehicle that's just been out for decades, has a strong following and, a lot of American history. So let's dive into this vehicle and see, what's so new this year. Now, if you couldn't place this vehicle right from the start, it was on the tip of your tongue, well, let me end your suspense. It is the 2018 Jeep Wrangler, and of course you knew that right from the silhouette. A vehicle that's been out for nearly 75 years, really staking its claim, of course, on the military side of things, and, has urbanized itself over the decades. And what it does is it makes no bones about it, no apologies. It's pretty much straightforward operating procedure, but a lot of things, of course, have evolved, and it really starts right there on the inside because it still has all that Jeep prowess on the outside, but maybe a little bit more frills than you realize. Now, I've been doing automotive journalism for about 15 years, and out of all those years, this is my first opportunity to get behind the wheel. No, of course, not personally, but in the professional arena. And why is that? Well, these vehicles just sell themselves. There's a true following. You see that when you get behind the wheel. If you notice motorcyclists driving down the road, they do the old two-finger out when they see a comrade going down the road. Same thing with this vehicle. What was funny is as I got down the road, people would do the old point the finger wave at me, and I just assumed, they've watched this show, but truth be told, they really saw the Jeep, and there's a heritage behind this vehicle. So in some sense, it does sell itself, and you can't beat what you see, specifically the fender flares, the big tires, the lift, the prowess of this vehicle, the straight lines. When everything else is going refined, chiseled, and a little too voluptuous, this one still being pretty much straightforward, and they just still don't make any apologies about it. Now, the best thing about the Jeep Wrangler has to be, just right here from the start. First off is the overall size and feel of this vehicle. Now, when it comes to SUVs and other vehicles, some are small, too big. Can you squeeze in here and there? What's great about this two-door is it really can go anywhere. And what I'm referring to is out in the woods, going down those trails, or for me, squeezing in the parking lot at the grocery store. It truly fits in everywhere. And where you see that is in the numbers. First off is overall length, around about 166 inches. Now that's going to be about 2 feet shy of the four-door model. As for wheelbase, as you can tell, very short, around about 96 inches. Comparatively to the four-door, that's going to measure in about 118. Now what's interesting is, of course, the width and height are almost identical, just over 6 feet, really giving you good equal numbers, and you can tell that in the rather square body lines right there in the middle. Now lastly is the ground clearance, and really what sets this vehicle off, and again does quite well, of course, hopping the urban curbs like I would do when you're trying to get through traffic and maybe doing a U-turn, or of course rock crawling or going off-road. Now the ground clearance on the standard model is just under 10 inches. It's going to creep up just a little bit for the mid model, or for the Rubicon, it's going to be nearly almost 11 inches, giving you plenty of height and of course step in to this vehicle. So if you look up front here, this is where you're going to get a little bit of dynamics, and this is really, again, the workability side of this vehicle. The hood, you can tell, has some nice vents, getting that air out nice and sculpted. Now if you go around front, now they kept the good old guerrilla warfare, straight slats we've all come to know. Bumpers are actually on this vehicle. Go look at other ones. These are all tucked into the body, very little protrusion. This one definitely sticking out to and fro, and nice heavy steel bumpers, of course. That's going to minimize those scrapes and dings on the otherwise prettified side of this vehicle. Of course, the slats, like I mentioned, and the cylinder shaped headlights. But if you dive in a little bit quicker, these aren't standards. A lot of operation going back here, and that truly is the innovation that this vehicle is moving towards. No reason to stay old school, except really in the body lines. Now you're probably wondering why we're squeezed in right here, because after all, it's pretty much a straightforward windshield. There you're wrong. Of course, it looks nice and pretty, nice and open, but it does have, some operation. Pretty much meaning you can fold this down for that true off-road purist that just won't sit out of the way, so the mud can definitely sling inside. Now, if you don't remember, Jeep went to battle against GM when it came to guerrilla warfare, specifically those vertical slats that they staked their claim on with the Hummer. Someone infringing on that. Of course, now looking back, well, we know who won the argument and, well, who won the war. Now, as you look down, this is another thing you've seen other vehicles try to copy, specifically even on the H3. Really kind of bulky haunches on the other ones that just look weird, quirky, because they didn't really harness what the Jeep Wrangler does well, and that's the kind of the embodiment of what this vehicle looks like. Nice broad haunches, nice square edges, rubber cladding, of course no chrome, no blinging out, and even better, a lot of steel everywhere you look, because after all, when you're rock crawling, you don't want any frilly plastics with a cute little step rail. You want some nice metal to minimize, well, bending the vehicle. Diving just a little bit, first thing you'll notice, of course, this is the hard top, basically meaning, well, it's going to require some removal, basically a two-person affair. Now, what I do like is that, well, the full hard top is not the case anymore. It's almost just this back half, the upper portion really being two T-tops that are removed, really lessening the weight of kind of getting rid of this off to the side. Now, there are a lot of anchor points. You can see them right through here, but pretty much plain and simple, about 3 little bolts on each side to take off and remove it out of the way. Now, once you do that, everything else, of course, is right in place. The good old roll bars like you're used to, and allows the Jeep to have that open air convertible look and really allow you to experience nature, well, and everything around you. So if you're into off-road adventures, one thing you can definitely do is, well, cross the river should it get in the way. Specifically, this vehicle can forge about 30 inches of water, easily surpassing that ground clearance, of course, and, well, taking on a little bit of water should you need. Now, lastly is the tires at the 4 corners. The Rubicon, of course, coming in 4-wheel drive, and specifically 285/70 over a 17-inch wheel. Now, if you truly want to experience the Jeep Wrangler, what it all has to offer, one thing to do is, well, again, take this top off, well, and even remove the doors. Now, one thing to note, they don't suggest that on typical driving experiences, maybe on the beach or when you're rock crawling, because you truly, of course, lose the protection this vehicle offers. And when you, well, get rid of this mirror, it makes it somewhat illegal. But what's great is they do make it easy to remove this door, because after all, they know you're going to do it. And the way you do that is you pretty much open it right up. And what they do suggest is not to, well, force pry or make this door come off one way or the other. The way you do it is just through, well, using your brain. First thing you do is really, there's a pin here on the hinge. Just going to take it off just like you do at a door inside the house. There's also a little harness here for all the wiring mechanisms. After all, this isn't your 70s model where it pretty much is a roll-up system. Well, this has a little bit of electronics. So what you're going to do is pop this off, undo the wiring, again, pop the pins there, and there's a little release right here for this grab. Once you do that, the door is all yours. Now, once you get the doors off, one thing you're going to want to do is basically take off these T-tops to get, well, a little bit of open air feel. One thing to note, again, this is a 3-piece hardtop versus older models that just one huge solid piece. Well, that was a 2-person lift. This, again, allows you for different dynamics. Maybe open air feel here, leave the hardtop on, whatever. Now, the way you do it is there's 4 hooks, basically latches on each side, 1 here, 1 up front, and 2 in the back. One thing to note, the passenger side comes off second. Once you get the driver's side, you basically lift up real light, and of course new material, so it's not heavy at all. Allows you to really just get it off with ease. Once you do that, you can simply reach over, grab the other side, and it really makes for a nice open air feel. And what I like is the 2 personalities, really allowing you to have just this open. And especially in the old days when you had that one piece, well, it meant you're all convertible or all not. And what that means also is when it's raining, putting that heavy bulky thing on, well, can take some time. It starts raining right now, well, give me about 30 seconds. Once you get the tops off, one thing to note is, well, you do have a little bit of storage back here behind the second row, because after all, once you get those tops off, well, people are going to want to ride with you because it's just the best of both worlds. Off-road prowess and, well, that open air feel. Now, what's interesting is, well, this doesn't really feel like a lot, but those hard tops really go in quite well. And what you do is you really just grab them real quick, again, real light and easy. And there's really not a prescribed way to do this, and, well, this just worked for me. What I found is there's really just enough open space back here, squeeze them in, and what's great is this surfacing really minimizes scratches. Now, this was a painted material, of course you'd ding it up all day, but really nice and rugged. Now, do you want to beat it around? Not really. Now, what I like is basically you can bring this glass down. That's going to hold it right in place with these. Close that up, and well, the tops are stowed away. Now, one way to really handle the roofs instead of just setting them in the back is you of course do have the bag holder, which really allows you to set them in there and have a spot to really house the rooftop. And as you can tell, it goes in this bag real easily, and once you put that in the vehicle, of course, it straps in and pretty much prevents it from falling out and scraping like when I did it. But since I had this out of the car at the time we took the tops off, we didn't utilize it, but still, again, with caution, you can put them in. This makes it so much easier. Even has a handle so you can kind of carry it with ease. One thing that definitely has changed is right, well, front and center. Now, I mentioned those headlights earlier, but it's only when they're lit up that you appreciate it. They definitely light up the dark areas, and really the off-roadness that this vehicle demands, well, you've got full lighting. And it first starts with the upper cylinders, and they're definitely dynamic for 2018. No throwback Thursday here, and you'll see it in the lens prowess, really the engineering that goes into that and all the throwability of that light. Of course, tucked down low is the lower fog lights. That's really going to dress up the vehicle from appearance sake, but also, well, dress up the path ahead. Now, what you also see is some accent lighting on the left haunches that really add a little bit of kind of accent lighting as well, and of course have some practicability. When it comes to power plants, there are two options: the as-tested 3.6 liter V6 engine or the smaller 2.0 liter inline 4-cylinder turbocharged option. Now, what's interesting is, well, between the two, there's not that much difference when it comes to power. Now, standard for the 4-cylinder is going to be around about 270 horses and 295 foot-pounds of torque. That compared to a little bit more horses there on the V6, around about 285, but less torque at 260 foot-pounds. Now, what's even interesting is the towing capacity, with really the two doors on both models, gross trailer rate around about 2,000 pounds, with the 4-door model trailering up to around about 3,500. So, well, both engines and, well, all models seem to be, well, somewhat equal. Now, one thing I didn't mention that's not equal to the engines we've talked about is, well, the diesel power plant that's coming out in 2019 after, well, a lot of demand by the public and, well, Jeep's delivering. Now, another thing to think about is, well, the transmission. I'm kind of a throwback Thursday when it comes to the manual, specifically on a Jeep. Put it on any other vehicle, I just don't care for the clutch stance. But on this vehicle, it just makes it so much more richer and, well, more pure. Now, what you're going to find here is a 6-speed manual transmission versus the 8-speed automatic. Now, another thing to think about is the 2-door versus 4-door. Again, sticking with tradition, I like the 2-door. The 4-door, though, steps it up maybe for the family, because what you have here is really a 2-2 design. When you go to the 4-door, well, it's 2 people and 3 in the back, and of course, a lot better ingress. Now, what you're also going to see is legroom numbers. Up front, 41 inches across the board. In the second row, 35 inches as you see here. A 3-inch gain when you go to the 4-door. When you get behind the wheel, this is where you're going to see, well, some refinements that maybe you don't remember from decades past, and it really starts, well, right there in the middle with the Uconnect system. I've tested many vehicles, the Jeep Grand Cherokees, Dodge Caravans, and of course every other model in between, and well, what I like is right there. The Uconnect really refines any vehicle, and it starts right here with the touch interface. First off is the shortcuts. A lot of interfaces make this very difficult, and well, plain Jane. Not the case here. Pretty much all your shortcuts, even right down to your climate. Some cases, looking down here for the controls, just not necessary. Really, some touch screen allows you to understand the vent selects, all the different options. Now, I do prefer more of the fan knob here versus kind of narrowing in to the different fan speeds. That's a little bit cumbersome. Instead, this is going to do much better. But everything duplicated, of course. You can go to other controls like this here, allows you to get up to the backup camera, really turn it on if you're going to get into some tight spots or what have you, get rid of it. It's really like operating an iPad, real easy to use. And of course, you have all the controls like the Wi-Fi hotspot, whole bunch of things here, refinements that of course they didn't have when this vehicle started. Just below the touchscreen system, you will find all the other various controls I mentioned. First off is the symmetric knobs. Now this is really what makes vehicles look refined, even, well, when they're trying to be rugged. And you can see it right here with the volume, fan, and of course tune select with some other modes in between, and these nice shortcuts for the climate. You do also have the heated steering wheel. Not really a big deal right now in the heat of the summer, but you do have those in the cooler months. You also, on this particular model, have the auto start function. Now again, I'm not a big fan of that, but what I found here on the Wrangler is that it's somewhat minimized. It didn't seem to really jolt me awake every time it turned on and off, and was somewhat used here and there. Now down below is some other controls. Now unlike the old days with the manual window controls, well, we have this stack right here. And now what's interesting is the way it operates. It's really kind of a toggle up system, really, versus just a simple understanding of pressing down. But what you do is just simply press here, press down, it operates. Really not that difficult. Got some power supplies over here on this side, and you do have nice media selection over here on the left. What's even better is the new USB-C, one of the latest connections instead of the old school USB. This eventually will, of course, will go away, and well, maybe one day the auxiliary jack. Now for the gauge clutch, you're going to find standard analog tach and speedometer with a huge LCD screen in the middle. And you'll see this on the Jeep Grand Cherokee and even some of the other Chrysler models. And what I like is it's really colorful, has all the information, and right there on the steering wheel, you can truly just toggle through the various information. And on a Wrangler, for the true enthusiast, you're going to be looking at this kind of things. Now for me, I pretty much, again, kept it straightforward, and what I left up there pretty much for the entire time was the speed, the digital readout, which a lot of vehicles are not going to. Instead, they're putting a little LCD readout there, provides you with very little information, and they leave out this one crucial factor, because the best part about this is it's really a quick glance versus looking over there to the right, which can be blocked depending on your angle of view. Instead, right there in the middle has all the information. Even better is the fuel gauge on the right in digital, of course, and a whole bunch of other information. Now you do have the 6-speed manual shifter here, of course, the traditional 4-wheel drive modes here, and also some other selects, as well as a sway bar option. Now for the key fob, it pretty much was traditional with a good old hefty key and the fob itself, but what I found, well, was the start button replaced the traditional options. Now what I like is the fact that you can pretty much get in, leave the keys in your pocket, and start the vehicle right up. However, that does not translate at the door. Instead, you have to, of course, press the button. What I prefer is, of course, more of a keyless option all the way around, allowing you to really simply grab the handle and get right in. Now in any off-road vehicle, one thing you want to think about is kind of the narrowness of it, the footprint. Can you squeeze through? And one thing that always gets in the way is, well, these side mirrors. And what I like the fact is, well, they're breakaway. Now one thing to note, it does take quite a bit of leverage to get them to break away. What that means is, well, it's going to take quite a big impact to get them to fold. Even better, it's going to take you a little bit of effort to do it yourself. One thing I like about the back seats is when there is no backseat drivers, well, you can minimize the headrest to, well, minimize blind spots, because after all, once they are in place, they can be kind of in the way when you're looking back. And what I truly like is the easeability when you go to lay this back seat down, because after all, it is one hefty back seat in the traditional sense. So pretty much all you have to do is pull this handle. It's going to tumble them forward. And then, of course, to lay the seat down, like we mentioned earlier, you can pull this handle right here. Now, one thing to note, should you want to have a full flat rear cargo, you do have to kind of hefty lift this out of the vehicle, and well, it's not that light. Now, just for this edition of Road Warrior, in our test drive behind the wheel of the 2018 Jeep Wrangler. And again, I didn't take it off-road, and I really don't have anything to brag about, well, when it comes to rock crawling or getting into the thick stuff, because after all, well, I like to be a little bit more, well, refined, and well, I just don't know how to go off-road. But this vehicle can definitely teach you, but it takes a little bit of respect as well. You definitely can't go off the road unless you're prepared. And it's, of course, it starts with what the Wrangler delivers. Even better for, well, my sensitive self is what you find inside. all the entertainment, of course, you can cruise and listen to while you're, well, going through the brush. And even better, you can do it in leather and, well, with some heated seats. Also, if you want to, make it a little bit longer by about 2 foot and add a 4th doors here at the back end, allowing for, well, your friends to climb in just a little bit easier. And don't forget the fact that, though, well, this is a hard top. It isn't traditional in the sense that, well, we can, well, drop the top without fully getting rid of it. That allows you to have, well, the best of both worlds, a little bit of open air without the huff and puff of taking this off. Now, as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.